Number 10. The Dawnbreaker. The Dawnbreaker was so unstoppable that he managed to destroy his entire world. This version of Bruce Wayne hails from the Dark Multiverse, from Earth -32. Here Bruce's story goes as anticipated in the beginning, with him being just a child when his parents were gunned down by Joe Chill. However, young Bruce in this tale is instead granted a Green Lantern ring following his parents' deaths, and ends up joining up with the Green Lantern Corps. The oath of Green Lanterns, though, does not necessarily resonate with Bruce, with him only seeing his ring as a means for him to get his revenge. Despite the fact that the Green Lantern's rings normally cannot be used to kill, Bruce pours his inner darkness, his void of emotion, into this ring, corrupting it and thereby willing it to kill, and even using it to temporarily raise the dead. He goes on to kill all of the criminals of Gotham, face off with the Green Lantern Corps and successfully kill them and the Guardians of the Universe, and of course destroy the entire world. Well, his entire world. A world. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, why not show us you love us by clicking that like? Number 9. Helena Wayne. Helena Wayne goes on to take up the Batman mantle on Earth 2. The New 52, Earth 2 that is. This version of Helena Wayne was helping her father to fight against an army of parademons as his Robin when she was transported to another world. Now on this Earth 2, Helena Wayne is actually the daughter of Bruce, so yeah. Despite the fact that her father did not survive that battle, Helena and Supergirl both did, being transported to the Prime Earth continuity. While here they initially were also unstoppable in their search to find a way home, at least initially. Despite the fact that Huntress, aka Helena Wayne, the daughter of Bruce Wayne and Selina Kyle, would eventually give up on this dream, she and Supergirl would also eventually be returned home to Earth 2. Once there, Helena would go on to also take up the mantle of Batman.
And at number 8, Superman.
You think you can threaten my mother?
Arguably one of the strongest characters in the DC world, Superman is beyond ready with a host of superpowers to prepare him for any given situation. Superman is often held as the pinnacle of justice and moral superiority, which is perhaps one of his more annoying superpowers. Although the more threatening side to him that should be stopped is his ability to live forever and fire friggin' laser beams from his eyes. Again, all of these overpowered abilities are in regards to these heroes operating on Earth, and the comic books have played with this idea before, for example the time that Superman just decided to take over the entire Earth and establish a dictatorship. Hope you have your kryptonite ready because we're going to stop Superman altogether. In at number 7, Supergirl. Who's more overpowered than Superman, you ask? Well, how about his cousin Kara Zor-El? Due to Kara also being a child of Krypton, she maintains all of the same powers and abilities as Superman, making them physical equals. However, even so, it's been argued that the last daughter of Krypton may be a little bit stronger than her cousin. Several times the two of them have even teamed up against villains, and repeatedly they have commented on her greater strength. Although they could have been trying to mess with Superman's brain, but if you look into her strengths, they may be right on the mark with that one. Supergirl needs to be stopped because the last thing that we would want is a family of supers from Krypton showing off on Earth. And at number 6, Shazam.
It kinda tickles.
Look, just because this overpowered superhero's name sounds like something a magician would say before pulling a rabbit out of a hat doesn't mean we shouldn't take him seriously. Each letter in his name stands for a different Greek mythological entity, those being Solomon, Hercules, Atlas, Zeus, Achilles, and Mercury. Want to get really scared of this superhero? He is so powerful that he was able to be ripped apart by the vacuum of space and then completely bring himself back together. On top of being able to transform from the body of a child into a superhero just by saying the word Shazam, he also practices magic. I mean, with a name like that, how could you not, right? Well, in terms of DC Comics, those who are proficient in magic often gain significant advantages over all other powers. In at number 5, Martian Manhunter. First off, anyone who introduces themselves as a Martian Manhunter needs to be stopped. How has this odd alien mixture of Batman and Superman been allowed to roam free? Martian Manhunter is so ridiculously overpowered that he has even been nicknamed the Swiss Army knife superhero. His powers are evenly matched with Superman, but with some extra abilities kind of sprinkled in. Along with heat vision, the Manhunter can also see in different spectrums, which means even if someone was using invisibility, he could spot them. Now, if you think that's too much power, let's not forget that he can also read minds, shapeshift, and access telekinesis. To top it all off as to why this overpowered DC superhero needs to be stopped, the only evidence required is that Superman himself has said Manhunter is the only Justice League member that he fears. Thankfully, there's only one of him left. In at number 4, Captain Atom.
I control radiation, Superman. That includes red sun radiation.
Also known as Nathaniel Atom, he was a United States Air Force officer during the Vietnam War. After being framed for a crime that he did not commit, Nathaniel was sentenced to death, but was first invited to take part in a military experiment. The experiment was sure to kill him, but if he were somehow able to survive, he would receive a presidential pardon. And after surviving the experiment of putting him in an alien spacecraft and setting off a nuclear bomb under it with Atom inside, the metal fused with his body and launched him 20 years into the future. Now with his atomic powers, he can control the quantum field, absorb cosmic energy, and do everything a superhero can do in regards to invulnerability, super speed, and flight. Although listen to this statement from Captain Atom and it will be all the evidence you need for why he needs to be stopped. He says, "My name is Captain Atom, as in A-bomb, as in nuclear fission, as in the end of the world." Yeah, he said that. Stop him, somebody. In at number 3, Dr. Manhattan.
Something lethal. Or if I know what that means.
After appearing in The Watchmen and the recent events of DC Rebirth, the once nuclear physicist named Dr. Jonathan Osterman became an official member of the DC universe, although it's his godlike identity of Dr. Manhattan that we should be fearful of. A terrible accident in an intrinsic field subtractor had completely transformed him into the blue anti-hero that we must now stop. The Doctor is impervious to all assaults, can manipulate all atomic and subatomic particles, and does not need food or water to stay alive. Wow. He doesn't need food or water to stay alive. Like, how are we gonna stop this guy? The reason we should be suspicious of this overpowered superhero is that his actions make it difficult to classify whether or not he's good or evil. So, let's just stop him. In at number 2, Phantom Stranger. This overpowered superhero is a mysterious mystic who has walked the earth for centuries. Although he has only appeared a few times in the comic books, when he did show up, you knew that something big was going to happen. The Phantom Stranger has a ridiculous amount of superpowers that seems to never end, with his magical abilities really knowing no bounds. Aside from being immortal, he can generate energy bolts, teleport, and even stop other magic in its tracks. His real name is Judas, and after having a big hand in killing the Son of God, he was, for whatever reason, gifted with all of these abilities. With all of those powers though, Judas is unable to directly interfere with the crisis and is implored to only guide the heroes. God forbid one day he attempts to overrule this stipulation, we would be in for a world of hurt. Lastly, on our number 1 spot, the Spectre. Before becoming this overpowered hero, the Spectre was Jim Corrigan, a Gotham City police detective. When his fiancée Gwen was kidnapped, the Phantom Stranger guided him to where she was being held. Unfortunately for Jim, it was a trap, and soon his soul would be imbued with divine powers, dubbing him the Spectre. Spectre is another one of those heroes that have near unlimited powers, and on top of that, he's a supernatural being tied to a human host on a mission to strike fear in villains around the world. He literally has shown how destructive these powers can be when we saw him completely obliterate an entire universe in a blink of an eye. Now ask yourself, is this the kind of power that a human should have? Yeah, we didn't think so either.
Number 10. Poison Ivy. Poison Ivy, also known as Pamela Isley, wields a formidable and unique level of power that sets her apart as one of Batman's most powerful villains. Gifted with a deep connection to plant life, Ivy's powers encompass both botanical manipulation and a heightened affinity for nature. She can communicate with plants, control their growth, and command them to bend to her will, utilizing them as powerful weapons or protective barriers, and she can do this on a global scale. Her toxic touch, stemming from her ability to secrete potent pheromones makes her a dangerous foe in close combat, assuming combatants can even get that close. Her expertise in biochemistry allows her to concoct various deadly toxins and antidotes, making her a master of botanical chemistry, and she can pretty much heal herself at will. What truly makes Poison Ivy fearsome is her ability to bend the very ecosystems to her command, unleashing nature's wrath upon her enemies. Now this isn't as impressive as her other feats of power, but she is also quite good at seducing her enemies, bending them to her will, which she has even done to the Man of Steel. Usually this is done with toxins, but sometimes just through straight up charm. With her compelling blend of power, allure, and eco-conscious motivations, Poison Ivy has been an incredibly popular villain who few can really stand against. Number 9. Larfleeze. Larfleeze, or Agent Orange, is one unique character in the emotional spectrum, and that's because he's the sole wielder of the Orange Light of Avarice. He is the only member of the Orange Lantern Corps. Larfleeze is driven by an insatiable greed that grants him dominion over all that he desires, driving him into conflict with whoever possesses what it is that he does desire, and over the power of the Orange Lanterns, which represent greed. His power is centered on his ability to conjure constructs using the stolen identities and forms of those he has absorbed into his horde, making him basically an army unto himself. This ability extends even to abstract concepts and beings, showcasing the extent of his control. The big thing about Larfleeze is that since he spent so much time with his Orange Lantern and ring, he has basically become the living Orange Lantern himself. This energy grants him huge levels of power. His constructs are virtually indestructible and can overwhelm even the most powerful opponents. However, Larfleeze's power comes at the cost of his individuality, as his insatiable greed makes him less of a person and more of a living embodiment of greed itself. Even without the power of the Orange Lantern, his race is already basically immortal, with Larfleeze himself being billions of years old, and with enough power that I seriously doubt he will be going down anytime soon.
Number 8. The Batman. I think one of the most unstoppable Batmen I've seen recently, despite his youth, would be our Year 1 Batman from the now Elseworlds DCU movie The Batman. In this film, Batman is played by Robert Pattinson and is presented as a version of Bruce who is still kind of struggling to find his footing in the city of Gotham as a hero. In fact, many people actually fear and revile Batman at this point, GCPD included, who, other than Jim Gordon, are not really on his side. However, despite being less experienced in comparison to some of the older, more established versions of the character, I would say that Batman, against all the odds here, is still impressively unstoppable. This likely has to do with the fact that he is not only attempting to prove himself as an ally and force of good to the city and its people, but also kinda to himself, trying to find a purpose in a world that he seems to have become increasingly disconnected from. In the end, Batman realizes that hope above all else is one of the most important things, not fear, and we see him begin to make his way down the path to becoming the hero that Gotham needs. Number 7. Jason Todd. In Battle for the Cowl, Batman is believed dead, and a final message is passed on to the Bat family members. Among those summoned to hear Bruce's final words is Jason Todd, former Robin, sometimes villain, and all around just a pretty complex character and vigilante. With Bruce absent, Jason believes this is his opportunity to prove himself and take up the cape and cowl. As Batman, Jason is relentless, not shying away from bloodshed or killing the criminals he comes up against, and dons a heavily armored suit and the former mask of Michael Lane's Azrael when he was the Bat Devil mask. This version of Batman is not against using guns, making him even more deadly, especially when he obviously shoots to kill. Jason Todd's version of Batman managed to best Nightwing, Tim Drake, and Catwoman in battle, successfully defeating all of them, although in the end, Nightwing did return and managed to defeat Jason, but this was also in part due to Dick gaining the upper hand in their final fight. Well, I mean, not their final fight, because, you know, this is comics, so there's a lot of stuff that happened after this, but just in regards to this specific story, I mean. Number 6. Dark Knight Returns. Of course, we have to have Dark Knight Returns, Frank Miller's dark, futuristic take on an older Bruce who chooses to return from retirement and don the cape and cowl once more. I mean, he is kinda the definition of unstoppable, is he not? This version of Batman ends up literally leaving retirement as an old man to come back and kick some butt. And he does a pretty freaking great job, I gotta admit, even almost beating Superman before seemingly dying of a heart attack, but even then, not really. So while Superman seemingly wins the ultimate and famous fight between the two of them, it's revealed that in the end it may have all just been part of Bruce's elaborate plot, meaning that as always the detective also wins in the end, especially because Superman's kinda like, yeah, I know he's still alive, it's all good. Number 5, Dick Grayson. Well, not quite as adept and skilled as Batman is, Nightwing has the range of skills to excel as Bruce's replacement, which is what happens in the New Earth continuity after Bruce is believed to have been killed in a fight against Darkseid. Dick Grayson ends up taking up the Batman mantle in his adopted father's absence, believing that Gotham needs Batman and that it would be unwise to let it be known that the original Batman is gone and dead. While Nightwing has many accomplishments as Batman, I more wanted to discuss him because I believe that not only is Dick Grayson a great option when it comes to the Batman legacy, but that recently, even outside of that, he's definitely proven himself to be unstoppable as a character, with or without the Batman mantle attached to him or even affiliated with him. Lately, he's been excelling as Nightwing, the protector of Bloodhaven, and is returning once more to lead the Titans, who will become the protectors of Bloodhaven, and obviously the protectors that Bloodhaven is desperately needing right now. A symbol of hope for a place that is sometimes presented as being even more corrupt than Gotham. However, it should also be noted that before this, Dick was also offered the opportunity to lead the Justice League, following the events of Dark Crisis, with Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman all seemingly coming together to decide that Nightwing was the best candidate to lead a new league in their absence. Of course, even though Nightwing was flattered by this, he chose instead to bring the Titans back and return as their leader. Or well, I mean, the Titans never really went anywhere, but he was like, we're gonna do Titans now instead. Ba-ba-ba. Number 4, Batman Red Sun. Batman Red Sun is definitely one of the most unstoppable Batmen around. He hails from Earth 30, an alternate world where Superman's Kal-El instead fell to Earth and landed in Soviet Russia, growing up there and becoming a Russian hero as opposed to an American one. Batman is a hero who actively fights against the Soviets, seeking revenge for the death of his parents, who were murdered by Stalin's police. Batman eventually is manipulated into taking on Superman himself, and while he does fail to kill Superman, Batman still makes an impressive attempt there. Especially impressive when you consider that this Batman, like so many others, is completely unpowered. And despite not physically winning that fight, choosing to die rather than allow himself to be captured in the end, Batman still manages to reveal the truth about the people that Superman works for, turning Superman against them and thereby getting his own revenge, despite not being alive to see it fully realized. Batman also lives on after the initial man's death that represented him, inspiring others in Russia to take up the mantle in his place and continue the fight for justice. So although the original guy that was Batman in that reality is dead, Batman still lives on and becomes unstoppable because legacy. Number 3, God of Knowledge. While still technically the main continuity Batman we currently have in the DC universe, and not in the traditional sense an alternate as in someone from another Earth or an Elseworld story, as we counted Dick Grayson before, who is also in the main continuity, I would like to present this version of Batman who represents a specific time in Bruce's life when he happened to gain the powers of Mobius, or at least the power of Mobius's chair. This was a device and tech that was initially used by Mobius, aka the Anti-Monitor, but given to the new god Metron by Mobius, before Batman ended up taking it for himself during Darkseid War. The chair grants whoever sits upon it vast knowledge, and also allows whoever pilots it to travel through time and through to various dimensions. In other words, this made Batman pretty insanely unstoppable. During Darkseid War, various heroes and villains took on new identities, becoming not new gods in terms of, the group of cosmic beings, but new gods in terms of them becoming gods, which was new gods, not new gods. Number 2, Batman in Bethlehem. In an alternate future, Damian Wayne ends up becoming Batman, and everything goes pretty crazy as a result. He takes up the mantle following the death of Dick Grayson, who ends up becoming Batman after Bruce retires. Following the death of his adopted brother, Dick Grayson, Damian sees killing as kind of the only way to deal with criminals like the Joker, who ended Dick's life in this case. However, Bruce disagrees, refusing to let Damian take up the mantle of Batman initially, and eventually kicking him out of the Batcave and Bat family as a result of his actions. Eventually, Damian would earn his father's forgiveness and his respect once more, and go on to take up the mantle, continuing to be Batman even after both Bruce's and Alfred's deaths. However, he would once again be seen as a killer, a much crueler and less forgiving version of Batman in the future. Damian even goes so far as to sell his soul to seemingly the devil, and in the end, Gotham ends up the victim of a nuclear attack in a harsh and chaotic apocalyptic futuristic world. Still, Damian never gives up, and even goes on to renegotiate his bargain with Simon Hurt, who is suggested to be the devil here. Number 1. Batman Who Laughs. Batman Who Laughs is hands down one of the most despicable and unstoppable Batman we've ever encountered, I think, in the comics. What makes him so unstoppable? Well, he's kind of an unreal combination of Batman and Joker blended together, and I would say it's that makes him so interesting, unique, and ultimately unpredictable and unstoppable. I mean, think about it. He has all the logic and skills of Batman, but the level of cruelty and off-the-wall thinking of the Joker. When he sets his mind to something, usually the Batman Who Laughs ends up on top and gets what he sets out to get. And I know what you're going to say, but Amanda, hold on a minute. Wasn't he defeated during Dark Knight's death metal? Yes, he ultimately was, but at the same time, look at all he accomplished before that. I mean, this is the guy who was able to take down one of the most powerful villains out there, Perpetua, who is older seemingly than time itself, known as one of the hands of creation, and is the mother of both the Monitor and Anti-Monitor, as well as, the World Forger. So that's pretty wild to me.
In at number 10, Major Disaster. Also known as Paul Booker, his alias of Major Disaster should be all you need to hear as evidence as to why this super is overpowered and needs to be stopped. During his tenure as one of the DC superheroes with the Justice League Antarctica, that's a thing, his motivations for good didn't last very long. With powers of disaster manipulation, it's troubling to think that the Justice League would have ever even considered him to be a hero at all. Maybe they were thinking, hey, let's stop natural disasters and use this guy to do it, but instead, they just created a B-list villain. Paul's ability to see the chains of chaos and assist in causing natural disasters are all enough to list this dude as having too much power for his own good. In at number 9, Zatanna. The daughter of famed magician Giovanni Zatara, Zatanna quickly established herself as a successful stage illusionist in her own right before even discovering how overpowered she actually was. In order to channel her magical abilities, Zatanna must say her spells backwards, and with this power she can pretty much do anything. This includes a control over the elements, and her ability of atmokinesis allows her to create a spell that can manipulate the weather. For example, the time that she turned rain into falling petals. Oh, how nice. Sure, that was cute, but what would happen if she chose to use the elements against humans? Her control over the elements should be extremely threatening for us normies, and after spending some time training these abilities, Zatanna became even more overpowered, now having full control over light, shadow, time, and space, all of which could now bend at her will. In at number 8, Orion. Also known as Darkseid's adopted son who was raised on Apokolips as part of a trade intended to be a truce with the new Genesis. Spoiler alert, that didn't last very long. Orion is very OP. How overpowered is he? Glad you asked. In Jack Kirby's New Gods, we follow a race of celestial superhumans, one of which was Orion. Orion is often referred to as the Dog of War by even other New Gods. He's so incredibly overpowered that he was able to actually kill his own father. Well, adopted father to be specific, but his standalone powers, while impressive, pale in comparison to what he is able to achieve using his A4. The A4, or Astro Harness, is that cosmic looking extension that's attached to his body. The harness allows for Orion to fly, teleport through boom tubes to any location in the multiverse, and fire off powerful energy blasts that can pierce through nearly any enemy. In at number 7, Dr. Fate. Just so you don't get your tidy whities in a bunch, the incarnation of Dr. Fate we'll be talking about for this point and the most OP is Kent Nelson. The two main reasons for this is his time as the longest resident magician for the DC universe, and the fact that his origin involves a monkey named Detective Chimp. Again, how cute. To touch on just how overpowered Kent is, you have to look no further than when he intervened in a war between the two rulers of Hell. He was able to stop them both from destroying the universe, but he himself is also guilty of destroying an entire alternate reality. And in order to stop Dr. Fate from taking the fate of the universe into his own hands, someone simply has to remove that helmet he wears. wears. The Helmet of Fate holds the spirit of an ancient Lord of Order, and those who wear it gain the near limitless power that it has, although once removed, they will be left entirely powerless.
Number 8. Old Lady Harley. Old Lady Harley is pretty epic. For those who are unfamiliar, she makes her first appearance in Harley Quinn issue number 42 from the 2016 series, aka Volume 3. Volume 3 total overall. This version of the character exists in a DC parody version of the Old Man Logan universe from Marvel. Much like in Marvel's Old Man Logan, the world and specifically NYC and Coney Island have pretty much gone to hell, becoming a post-apocalyptic landscape. Despite being older, Harley ends up returning to Coney Island and ending a turf war by battling her gang of Harley's members, claiming the title of ruler of NYC by beating their unsuspecting selves handily. Number 7. DCU. Whether we're calling it the DCEU, standing for the DC Extended Universe, or the rebranded version that we now know, the DCU, simply standing for, DC Universe, the live-action world of DC definitely has one of my favorite versions of Harley Quinn, played by Margot Robbie. Why do I think she's so unstoppable? I mean, have you seen her in James Gunn's The Suicide Squad or Harley Quinn Birds of Prey? She's completely unstoppable in both. In The Suicide Squad, Harley gets kidnapped, and while the squad make a plan to rescue her, she actually ends up escaping all by herself. That's right, Harley rescues herself here. In Birds of Prey, there are many moments where she seems completely invincible to me. My favorite is probably the car chase scene, which we get near the end, where she goes after Cassandra Cain, who's kind of being held hostage at this point by Black Mask, and Harley actually goes after them while they're in a car on roller skates with the help of Helena Bertinelli's Huntress. It's epic. Also, if you haven't watched Harley Quinn Birds of Prey yet, what are you doing? It's so good. Number 6. Bombshells. I think one of my favorite versions of Harley around is the Bombshells version, who also happens to hail from one of my all-time favorite universes in the DC multiverse. Don't you know? In Harley Quinn's series Harley's Little Black Book, Harley even teams up with this alternate version of herself, and together, well, not really working together, but more working separately and it kind of just working out. Well, rather Bombshells Dr. Quinzel working, and main continuity Harley just kind of messing around and getting lucky how she usually does. They end World War II. I don't know about you, but to me that feels pretty unstoppable. That's a big task even in an alternate fictional universe. That's a big task even in the real world. The Bombshells universe is actually set during the time period of World War II and imagines what our heroes, specifically our female heroes and anti-heroes or villainesses, would be like if they existed back then. Number 5. Rebel against Starro. This is the version of Harley Quinn we are first introduced to through her own Multiversity series. Multiversity, Harley screws up the DCU. In issue number 1, Harley inherits a time machine from a mysterious Professor Incredulous. Against the wishes of her crew, the gang of Harleys and Egg Fu and Red Tool, well, Red Tool isn't really against it, but he is present for this, she decides to jump into the Way Back When machine and of course travels through time. While she doesn't exactly remember her entire journey, seemingly reeling from the experience alone, she does discover that her actions have somehow resulted in an alternate timeline where Starro has completely conquered the planet. She ends up being rescued by her own alternate self, who in this universe is a short-haired badass version of Harley who talks to her own bat and is part of the rebellion against Starro the Conqueror. Number 4. DCAU. Hailing from the DC animated universe, especially the corner of it pertaining to the Batman animated series, and resulting spin-off comics set in the same universe, we have kind of the original Harley Quinn, to be honest. While it seems a little weird to me to put her on an alternate list, since she is technically the main version of the character, there are those out there who actually still consider her an alternate because she hails from the animated universe as opposed to the comics, even though technically she came first, so she'd be the original. The Batman, the animated series version of Harley Quinn, is often depicted as being a lot more of a dangerous villain. She doesn't often hold back, and she doesn't often act as a hero. Unlike the modern day comic book version of the character, this version of Harley Quinn almost seems to be virtually unkillable and has at times broken the fourth wall, implying that she is even aware that she herself is a cartoon character, which to me is pretty powerful, I would say. Harley Quinn from the DCAU appeared in the Batman Adventures comic series and of course in the Batman the Animated Series, where she was voiced by Arlene Sorkin. Number 3. Red and Black Lantern. Although I believe the Little Black Book is supposed to be set in the main continuity, I kinda like to consider some of the really souped up versions of Harley Harley as their own alternates. Also, Harley's kind of interesting, and I feel like even if it's main continuity, sometimes it's always kind of wonky with Harley. But although they do sort of represent a period of time in Harley's life in that main continuity, they often also stand separate from that with their own individual tales that stand alone. And for that reason, they feel like an alternate version. Also, I'd be sad that I wouldn't get to talk about them, so here we go with one from Harley's Little Black Book. This one comes from an issue in the series where Harley Quinn teamed up with Green Lantern. Well, she kind of initially faced off against him, but in the end saved Hal and even briefly became a Green Lantern herself. However, Harley got her hands on a Red and Black Lantern ring and became herself a combo Red and Black Lantern, which is why they fought initially, which is also pretty OP as you might imagine, and of course pretty perfect for Harley with her red and black coloring. Number 2. Hammer Harleen. Another one of my favorite versions of Harleen technically comes from a very brief period in her main continuity story. This is Hammer Harleen. Hammer Harleen is a version of Harley who appears for only a few select issues in her 2016 series. While on vacation, Harley ends up getting recruited by Granny Goodness to become a female Fury. However, this only lasts about 1.5 issues as she pretty quickly annoys Granny Goodness to the point that her powers as a female Fury are taken back away from her, and of course she ends up imprisoned instead on Apocalypse, which I mean, if you're a Harley fan, I'm sure you saw that one coming. Don't worry though, with the help of her newfound friend, Petite Tina, Harley does end up eventually escaping back to Earth. Number 1. The Offer. When people often talk about the version of Harley that they think of as the most unstoppable or most powerful version, Year of the Villain tends to be the one that fans of the character most often bring up. When it comes to Harley Quinn comics, including Year of the Villain, I feel like almost anything could actually be considered alt reality. I mean, the lead into this event in the Harley Quinn series happened through Harley reading a Year of the Villain comic itself in canon starring her. Pretty wonky. And of course, when Apex Lex offered Harley her ultimate self as part of this event, Harley actually said, no thanks. So instead of becoming her quote unquote most unstoppable version, according to Lex anyways, Harley ultimately passed, which really makes this crazy cybernetic version of her powered by Yellow Lantern energy and a drop of Lobo's blood an alternate.
And at 10, Superman. The catalyst of the Batman vs Superman story, Superman's power is hardly properly showcased, but this perfect story that shows it and its danger is injustice. Okay, in the world of injustice, Superman is driven to extremes by the death of Lois Lane at the hands of the Joker, which is a whole thing. Superman was convinced that he was fighting Doomsday, even though Doomsday was Lois, so yeah, I'm sure you see where that leads, which leads him to believe that he has to take a more aggressive approach to maintaining law and order in the world. As a result of this, Superman becomes a ruthless dictator, using his immense powers to control and subjugate the entire world and killing anyone who opposes him. He's willing to use violence and force to achieve his goals, and quickly becomes a symbol of fear and oppression rather than hope and justice. One of the most interesting aspects of the Injustice version is like the way that Superman's portrayed as a tragic figure, because like while his actions may be extreme and villainous, he's motivated by a sense of loss and doesn't want it to happen to anyone else. But this doesn't justify it, and it just shows you how strong he actually is if he wanted to be evil. It also makes him butt heads with the original version of Superman that they have to bring over from his Earth to help them beat their version. So yeah, the only way that this Superman could be stopped is with another Superman. And at 9, The Flash. Okay, literally though, this is a feeling I've seen every Flash fan express at one point or another in their fandom live. That this dude is so fast, nothing should be able to stop him, and honestly, that's a valid argument. I mean, not only is he super fast, but he also is super fast because of the Speed Force, which is a separate, basically godlike entity that chose him to give speed to. This guy's been able to run on water, run up air like it's a damn staircase, beat instantaneous teleportation, and sacrifice himself to save the multiverse and still come back from that. All because of his connection to the Speed Force. He can travel through time, change the entirety of reality like he did with Flashpoint, and honestly, probably destroy the world if left unchecked. So yeah, the fact that some of these dudes have been shot in the head, like Reverse Flash during Flashpoint, or in the comic version, he's is just stabbed by Batman is definitely just because of the plot. Otherwise, the Flash and other speedsters would just be unstoppable.
Coming in at number 8 is Freddie Freeman. If we're gonna include Mary Marvel on this list, Lady Shazam, we have to include Freddie Freeman. Freddie is the best friend of Billy Batson and arguably the second most beloved member of the Marvel family. Freddie was one of the first people surrounding Billy to be also granted the powers of Shazam. He ended up becoming Captain Marvel Jr. But considering Freddie and Billy are like best friends, could you imagine your best friend being like, hey, so I got these awesome powers and I'm gonna give you access to them, but, and I know you're my best friend, but you have to call yourself me Jr. and be my sidekick. Sorry, loser. I'd be so mad, but at the same time, Freddie did eventually become the next Shazam in the awesome Trials of Shazam story. And I honestly dig the long-haired blonde Shazam. He looks awesome, and he honestly did a pretty good job holding the title. Number 7, just imagine. So, back in 2002, DC teamed up with Stan Lee of Marvel Comics fame, and together they released the Just Imagine series, which is basically DC saying, hey, just imagine if we let Stan Lee come and make a bunch of characters with the basic principles of DC characters, which is such a great idea. One of those characters ended up being Robert Rogers from Just Imagine Shazam #1, and yes, he is Stan Lee's Shazam. When I tell you he is absolutely nothing like the regular Shazam, I ain't kidding. Other than saying Shazam to activate his powers. For starters, he is not a kid. He is actually an agent with Interpol, and he is assigned to the tough agent Carla Noral. Together they go to India to hunt down criminal Gunga Khan. Another big difference is that instead of being powered by the wizard Shazam and 6 gods, he is actually powered by the wizard Merlin of King Arthur legend, with the goal to hunt down Morgana Le Fay, because of course it's Stan Lee. Oh, also, it's worth mentioning that instead of turning into a handsome black-haired hunk, when Rogers yells Shazam, he turns into a big pink demon that gets a magical power boost, demon wings, super strength and durability, and a lovely little bone necklace. Excelsior! Number 6, Captain Thunder. This is kind of confusing because there are so many versions of Shazam who use Captain Thunder as their name. Basically, Captain Thunder that I'm talking about was William Fawcett, a kid who was given powers similar to Captain Marvel. He received his powers when the shaman Maroki gifted William a belt with a thunderbolt symbol that, when rubbed in combo with the magical word thunder, turns him into Captain Thunder. Unfortunately, after fighting the Monster League of Evil, they gave him an evil persona instead of a heroic one. So, when Captain Thunder first appeared in Superman 276 in 1974, he was helping robbers instead of fighting them. It's only after Superman urges Thunder to use his wisdom to fix what happened and to make it back to his own Earth. There was a much cooler version of Captain Thunder in the Flashpoint timeline with a sweet battle tiger, who is who you'd probably think of when I say Captain Thunder, but I don't want to talk about him. So, nah. Number 5, Kingdom Come Shazam. In an alternate possible future, metahumans or superheroes are now hated. Because of this, Billy Batson hasn't become Shazam in years and is now full grown, looking a lot like his alter ego, minus the cool costume and cape and powers and stuff. He was eventually brainwashed by Lex Luthor into believing that metahumans and even the Captain Marvel inside of him are all monsters. In time, Bruce Wayne tries to convince Billy otherwise, which eventually forces him to turn into Shazam once more, breaking open the metahuman prison and starting a massive war that puts the world at risk. After a nuclear device was dropped threatening to kill thousands, Superman convinced Billy to help, and Shazam outraced Superman to the bomb, using his lightning to destroy it, sacrificing himself to save both humans and metahumans, ending the hatred against superheroes once and for all. Good job. Number 4, Earth 5 Shazam. Earth 5, or Earth S if you prefer, is a simpler, kinder world. A world that is more optimistic, a world where the heroes are seen as such with hardly any faults. Basically, this is the golden age of comics, specifically Fawcett Comics, where Captain Marvel is the main superhero, which gives the world the name Thunderworld. He and his family, Captain Marvel Jr. and Mary Marvel, keep the world safe from everything from the Monster Society to aliens. I'm talking like Shazam is essentially taking the place of Superman as the premier superhero of the Earth. This version of Shazam worked together alongside Superman and Overman of other universes to recruit the Supermen of the universe. They all worked together, led by Captain Marvel, to defeat Ultraman and weaken Mandrak, who was killed by the Green Lanterns. Yeah. Number 3. Shazam Who Laughs. After the Batman Who Laughs infects Shazam/Billy Batson with a dark metal virus, turning him into a Joker-like version of himself, he is tasked with infecting Superman with the same Joker dark metal virus. Shazam goes to the Batcave and waits for Superman to show up so he can attack, and Joker Shazam is easily a match for Superman and Batman one-on-one. But with the two teaming up, he's a little overwhelmed and retreats, which is odd because going by King Shazam, he takes on the Titan Atlas trying to test his new abilities and even defeats multiple gods. When he is in a fight with Ares, he even defeats and infects Lady Shazam, so it doesn't really check that Batman and Superman give him that much trouble, but whatever, that's how comics go because Batman and Superman are Batman and Superman. Luckily, he is cured thanks to Lex Luthor cutting off the source of the dark metal, but this guy was nuts and showed no signs of stopping, and that smile? It's creepy. It's just creepy. Don't like it. Number 2. Mazaz. When we first ever meet Mazaz, he is described as the most powerful superhero on Earth 3, the home of the sinister JLA, the Crime Syndicate of America. He was for a long time the biggest threat that the Crime Syndicate of America ever faced, and he has taken the lives of a lot of the CSA's members using his superpowers. So what are those superpowers? Alexander was just a regular guy, as much as a Luthor can be, until at some point in his life, he figured out how to take the powers of superpowered beings. It seems that the first person who lost their power and their life to Alexander was Will Batson, Earth 3's Billy Batson, which gave Alexander the powers of Mazaz, which is Shazam backwards. Those powers are to call down dark lightning, transforming him into a more masculine being with superhuman strength, durability, flight, electrokinesis, and presumably magic. When he first shows up, he has already stolen the powers of a hero called Hawkwing, who we don't actually know, but he also goes on to take all the Kryptonian-like powers of Bizarro, plus kryptonite immunity, the Firestorm matrix powers of Deathstorm, Earth 3's Firestorm, the super speed abilities of Johnny Quick, and way more. While the characters he fought were arguably worse than him in terms of their morality, no one from Earth 3 is really good, and he is absolutely terrifying. And finally, in at number 1, it's the God of Gods Shazam. The God of Gods was a side story from Darkseid War centered on the hero Shazam, and sees him gain 6 new gods in place of the original. After the Anti-Monitor killed Darkseid by fusing the Black Racer with the Anti-Life, Darkseid's death caused Shazam's connection to the Olympian gods to disconnect. Shazam's old gods were replaced by new gods, and the new gods included Anapel, the goddess of rebirth, Siva, the god of destruction and strength, Ate, the goddess of impulse, Hronmir, the Martian god of death, Memorgan the wizard, and Zanzu/Yuga Khan, the father of Darkseid. Shazam gaining these new gods' powers makes him incredibly powerful. Yuga Khan said that Shazam can put a hole in the source wall by being empowered by the other 5 gods with the lightning rod, which is incredibly powerful if you don't know. So, long story short, the God of Gods was an incredibly amped up version of Billy Batson's Shazam.
In at number 10, The Flash. Let's get this out of the way straight off the top. The entire Justice League minus Batman is way too overpowered and they need to be stopped. Having the Flash in your team is the shining example of what an overpowered hero looks like. He can run faster than the speed of light and as a result is known as the fastest man alive. This simple overpowered ability is the focus because it allows for the Flash to do ridiculous things. He can run through walls, run up buildings, and even throw a punch at a super speed. Although it's not his combat that should be troubling for us normies, it's the fact that he can move so fast that he can travel through time. We all know that time travel in any sense has never turned out to have all positive results. The negative effects have even been felt after the Flash did this in the comic books, and I'm sure we wouldn't want that to be our reality. In at number 9, Green Lantern. Much like the Hulk, Hal Jordan actually becomes stronger from fighting with his enemies. Typically the Green Ring will drain its user's willpower, but Hal seems unaffected by this. Even if he's becoming overwhelmed by an opponent, he can easily defeat them with surges of his undefeatable will. On top of all that, the Green Ring allows for him to create anything from his thoughts into actual physical objects. For the most part, the Green Lantern's power is reserved for defending the universe, but even so, it's far too much power for a human like Hal to take on. Thankfully, if things did go sideways and we really wanted to stop him, all it would take is the color yellow. We know it sounds crazy, but that is actually the Green Lantern's weakness, so make sure you keep a stockpile of bananas real close.
Number 8. Becca from Gods and Monsters. Becca may just be the strongest of the Wonder Women who have shown up today, and that's because she's different from them all. She isn't even an Amazon. Becca, who was Wonder Woman in the animated Gods and Monsters, is actually a new god. She was exiled from New Genesis following her marriage to Darkseid's son, Orion, a wedding that was interrupted by her family, who used the momentary peace between New Genesis and Apocalypse to launch a sneak attack. When she came to Earth, she became Wonder Woman alongside a vampire Batman and a Superman who was actually the son of General Zod. As a new god, she does have similar abilities to Wonder Woman, only they should be far superior. She wields immortality, super strength and durability, flight, super healing, and self-sustenance, but more literally, she also wields a golden lasso, New Genesis armor, and a sword given to her by Orion that was crafted by the greatest smiths on Apocalypse and is basically indestructible. Certainly a powerful version of Wonder Woman. Number 7. Superwoman from Earth 3. While Superwoman is an alternate version of Wonder Woman, originally she was actually the Lois Lane from Earth 3, who on this world seems to have similar powers to a Kryptonian, but she was indeed an Amazon, wielding the lasso of submission instead of truth, which was capable of forcing others to do her bidding and forcing them to love her. She was capable of not only everything Wonder Woman could do, but she could fire beams of red-hot energy from her eyes, and she could fly, which I'm pretty sure Wonder Woman can do most of the time. She created an incredibly toxic love triangle between Ultraman, which is Superman in this world, and Owlman, which is Batman in this world, of the Crime Syndicate of America, even having a child with Owlman, but promising to Ultraman that it was his, but it was actually some other guy's baby, and it's just this big whole thing, and woo! Don't want to talk about it anymore. Number 6. Donna Troy of Earth 3. Just as Donna Troy became the new Wonder Woman in the legit continuity, on Earth 3 she would also become the new Superwoman. But unlike the previous Superwoman, who seemed to have the same abilities as a Kryptonian, Donna Troy was a bona fide Amazon from Demon Island. As the Queen's daughter, Donna was trained harder and pushed farther than any other person on the island. She was expected to become stronger than any other, and when she met Steve Trevor and fell in love, it was her test of strength to go against that love and snap him like a dry twig. Now, having proven herself worthy in her mother's eyes, she set off into the world and forced her way into the Crime Syndicate of America as the new Superwoman, wielding the lasso of submission. Now, Donna's whole life goal is to truly make her mother proud by eventually returning to Demon Island, slaying her, and taking the throne for herself. Goals? Number 5. Aurora of Themyscira. Comics seem to continuously supply us with things we never thought we needed. In a moment not likely to happen again in the near future, the House of DC and the House of Marvel were friends. They could talk, they could play nice, and to prove that, one of the most beloved moments came in the mid-1990s when these two companies joined forces for a crossover. This took place in the amalgamated world of Earth 9602. On this Earth, it was not Diana Prince who became Wonder Woman. Instead, a meta-mutant child by the name of Aurora was rescued and raised as a princess of the Amazons by Queen Hippolyta, alongside Diana Prince. The two fought alongside each other as they grew up, but when the time came to choose who would be Wonder Woman, Aurora's natural ability to control and harness the forces of the weather, plus her Amazonian training, allowed her to secure the victory. She went off to become one hell of a hero when she finally left the island to enter man's world. It's such an interesting and surprising mashup of characters, but when you properly think about it, it really does make a whole lot of sense that Storm and Wonder Woman could be the same person. Number 4. Injustice Wonder Woman. When you've got to sell a video game, you make your characters badass. And when that game is taking the heroes and villains of the DC Comics universe and mixing it with Mortal Kombat, that's just a recipe for some unstoppable forces. The Wonder Woman from the Injustice series is that unstoppable force. Injustice is essentially Superman losing his family and then deciding that he and other super beings should rule the Earth. His number one go-to person is Diana, and she's basically even worse than he is. Many people have argued that Wonder Woman was the real antagonist of the story. She caused the passing of Captain Atom, one of the best hopes against Superman. She takes the life of Huntress for insulting Superman, is the accomplice in the passing of Martian Manhunter and this low-level guy called Galaxor. She turns Harley Quinn into a shish kebab. She had taken the place of Lois Lane as Superman's lover, turned the other Amazons to Superman's cause, and the whole time she was doing that, she was whispering in Superman's ear, pushing him to go even farther and farther down the path of villainy. Number 3, Dead Earth. Now, I'm not sure what the general consensus on this comic book is, and quite frankly, I don't care because I think this version of Diana of Themyscira is just absolutely insanely dope. The comic picks up in an apocalyptic wasteland in what used to be Gotham. Deep down in the remnants of the Batcave, Wonder Woman had been kept alive in a containment unit and was awoken by a group of humans who were running from a mutated monster known as a Hydra. After saving the Humies and liberating their city, she journeys to Themyscira only to find out that the Hydra are actually her fellow Amazons mutated by atomic radiation after the Amazons had decided to go to war with the rest of humanity who had driven the Earth to its breaking point. The human world had bombarded Themyscira with nuclear fire, even though Diana used the absolute limits of her abilities to stop it. When Superman, who fought for humanity, turned up to try and explain why he couldn't have helped her, we just see how powerful this Wonder Woman is. Losing complete control of herself, Wonder Woman and Superman fought each other to the point of causing a great fire that plunged the world into the apocalypse, and at the end of that fight, Wonder Woman, who was double fisting some kryptonite, brought Superman to his final rest with a hole straight through his chest. She collapsed from the exhaustion, and when she learned of this past, Wonder Woman decided to set things right and protected what was left of humanity from what she once called her sisters. And in at number 2 is Brunhild. Earth 10 is a universe where things happen just a little differently in terms of our world history. Mainly, I'm talking about who came out on top at the end of World War II. Instead of what really happened, the Axis powers came out on top here, turning Germany and their symbol-wielding fascist party into the world's next superpower. But the only reason they achieved this was because they had actual superpowers on their side. The Justice League Axis, which eventually became the new Reichsman. For this alternate Wonder Woman, we actually have 2 different women, both going by the name Brunhild. The first being red-headed and the second being blonde-haired and blue-eyed. No surprise there, but both being extremely capable female warriors with seemingly no weaknesses. She seems to take inspiration from Norse mythology, and for me to back that up, there is indeed a Prime Earth Brunhild who is the leader of the Valkyries. What's interesting is that in the Golden Age, the Valkyries were enemies to Wonder Woman, but on the Prime Earth, it's actually become canon that Valkyries and Amazons are part of the same race. As such, Brunhilde does have all the same attributes as Wonder Woman, which was probably a big help in taking over the world. And finally, in at number 1 is Nubia. Nubia isn't really an alternate version of Wonder Woman. She's pretty much her own character, and she is in fact the sister of Diana. Nubia came to be in the exact same way as Diana, but where Diana was molded from white clay, Nubia was molded from black clay, and stolen away by the god of war, Ares, or if you prefer, Mars. Nubia was charged by the Greek gods with defending the entrance to the river Styx and the gates of Tartarus, and that on its own should tell you how capable this Amazon really is. Her powers appear to be exactly the same as Diana, and on Earth 23, Nubia actually is Wonder Woman, but seems to be even more powerful with complete access to her world's technology and mystical devices, suggesting her position may be more like Queen Hippolyta rather than Diana. And that's probably the case because on Prime Earth, Nubia became the new and current Queen of Themyscira, and eventually the Queen of all Amazons. She's so cool and definitely my favorite of all those to have been Wonder Woman.
Number 10. Harley Quinn, the animated series. I love this version of Harley Quinn. She is definitely one of my favorites and definitely one of the most unstoppable versions of the character that I have seen. Even when you feel like there is no way that Harley and her crew will be able to survive and move forward, they have a tendency to always come out okay, and often even on top, even in the most dire and bleak situations. Harley Quinn here is also an extremely stubborn and determined character who fights to make a name for herself and achieve notoriety as a famed villain. And for that, we love her and must pay respects. Harley Quinn from her own animated series is voiced by Kaley Cuoco. And friends, before we move on to our next spot on this list, if you love what we do here at Top 10 Nerd, be sure to show us that you love us by clicking that like button. Boop. Number 9. Batman the Damned. Not only is this version of Harley completely terrifying to behold, but she is also fairly deadly as well in practice. After the Joker was killed, this version of Harley decided to start dressing up as him and terrorizing Gotham in his stead. At one point, she even almost takes down Batman herself. Possibly even more frightening to consider when it comes to her power is that Harley herself was likely mistreated by the Joker, and uses this to fuel her own sense of brutality and and violence. While I would still say this Harley was initially pretty unstoppable, this version of Harley also has, what do you call that, when you're like a corpse and you have those scars? She got those, so I feel like if you got that and you're alive, and I'm just saying, that seems pretty crazy to me. While I would still say this Harley was initially pretty unstoppable, it should be noted though that she was eventually forced to rein in her attack on Batman. You know, because it is Batman, so at the end of the day. Also, it's literally a series named after him. Sadly, we don't have a Brian Azzarello Harley Quinn the series. Or maybe fortunately we don't have that. I don't know if I'd want that, to be honest.
Number 8. Time Trapper. The Time Trapper is often associated with the Legion of Superheroes, and he operates as a master manipulator of time. If you know comics and time travel, then you know that this gives the Time Trapper control over the fabric of reality itself. Possessing the power to alter and manipulate the past, present, and future, the Trapper can rewrite history on an unprecedented scale. He was able to age anyone he chose to the point of bones or ashes if he wanted to. He was capable of creating an iron curtain of time, which was a barrier which prevented time travel. The Time Trapper was also able to create a temporal force barrier which he used to seal a time-traveling Superman off from the 20th century. He was able to take a slice of time from the post-crisis DCU 1 million years in the past and craft its Earth and Krypton into reality similar to the recently destroyed Earth 1 universe, forming a pocket universe. He made a pocket universe. That's nuts. These are godly feats of time manipulation and control. Often depicted as a shadowy hooded figure, the character's level of power is so vast that even immensely powerful cosmic entities such as the Timeless Ones tread cautiously in his presence. On top of that though, he possesses power with size alteration, intangibility, flight, telepathy, telekinesis, alongside symbolizing the very essence of temporal manipulation and unpredictability in the DC universe. Number 7. General Zod. Hailing from the planet Krypton, General Zod possesses the same superhuman abilities as Superman due to their shared origin. These abilities include super strength, speed, invulnerability, heat vision, and flight, making him a physical match for the Man of Steel. What set Zod apart though is that he was originally the leader of the military defense for the Kryptonian Science Council. He betrayed the Science Council after learning that they were lying to him about the inevitable destruction of the planet Krypton and was banished to the Phantom Zone by Superman's father, Jor-El, who he swore vengeance against for not siding with him. His formidable combat experience and tactical genius acquired during his time as a military leader on Krypton make him a fearsome adversary in battle. Zod's obsession with Kryptonian superiority and his unrelenting desire to establish dominance often drive him to harness his power to their fullest extent, doing things that would make Superman faint. Throughout his appearances in DC Comics, General Zod's determination, belief in his cause, and great power, coupled with the fact that he pretty much always comes back somehow, make him pretty hard to put down for good, unless you're Henry Cavill. Number 6. Vandal Savage. Vandal Savage was alive 50,000 years ago as a chief of a tribe of other cavemen, but when he came into contact with a strange meteorite, it exploded and bathed him in this strange alien radiation that gave him immunity to aging, disease, and fatigue, meaning he is effectively immortal. The meteorite also increased his intelligence to superhuman levels, which combined with 50,000 years of learning, experiencing, and living alongside every single technological innovation in the history of man, Vandal Savage possesses skills in almost all areas of the human experience, even basically becoming immune to pain. Specifically though, he focuses on the tactical skills that would help him become a world conqueror. His schemes range from being a conqueror to a criminal mastermind, leveraging his intellect and immortality to reshape civilizations and wield substantial influence. His power is further magnified by his ability to learn and adapt from each encounter, making him an almost insurmountable adversary for even the most powerful heroes. With his immortality, intelligence, and complex motivations, Vandal Savage is one villain that seems to just keep on popping up. Number 5. Parallax. This cosmic entity is a cosmic entity, so it kinda defeats what I just said in the intro, but he's the living embodiment of fear and has created several problems for different heroes over the years, and still he's somehow kind of small and relegated to like this corner of DC. Originally imprisoned by the Guardians of the Universe in their central power battery, his presence would eventually lead to the corruption of a couple of the Green Lantern Corps' power rings, creating the Yellow Lantern. Lanterns. Parallax is immortal and exists as pure energy, unable to be destroyed and more than capable of manipulating matter and energy on a cosmic scale. He's able to generate such intense fear in a person that he can actually control them, having done this to several heroes without much effort over the years, the likes of which include Superman and even Wonder Woman. His biggest feat would have to be the corruption of Hal Jordan though, causing the guy to do some pretty unspeakable things like wiping out the entire Green Lantern Corps. Funnily enough, that wasn't the original reason, but DC just retconned it to that so Hal could seem a little bit more redeemable after he just did that. Well, there you go. Number 4, Reverse Flash. Eobard Thawne is what happens when you take the Flash and make him utterly insane. Possessing a deep obsession with the Flash, Thawne's connection to the negative Speed Force grants him superhuman speed and reflexes that meet those of the Scarlet Speedster himself, and sometimes go a little bit past that. This negative Speed Force grants him a kind of power over time manipulation and enabling him to travel through time at will. This mastery of temporal mechanics allows him to alter history, create alternate timelines, and manipulate events to his advantage. His ability to affect the past and future makes him a uniquely terrifying opponent, as he can unravel the very fabric of reality itself. Then, as a villain of Flash, Eobard's intimate knowledge of the Flash's life and history enables him to anticipate his every single move, making it extremely challenging for the Flash to outsmart him, and Eobard has revealed that he has manipulated Barry's life to be the way that it is, which is kind of just a huge old time loop that probably unravels if you try to think about it too much, but just don't do that, so there you go. This combination of incredible speed, time manipulation, and strategic intellect makes Reverse Flash an arch nemesis who constantly pushes the Flash to his limits, solidifying his reputation as truly powerful, incredibly unpredictable, and very hard to stop. Number 3, Starro. If you have seen the newest Suicide Squad movie, the one with Idris Elba and John Cena, then you know who Starro is. He's that massive, terrifying starfish alien conqueror that was releasing millions of tiny starfish that turn people into unwilling servants. Starro is actually one of the Justice League's earliest villains, and he poses a massive threat as he can use his reproduced drones to take control of an entire population, and he has subdued members of the Justice League multiple times, just like how it was done in that film. Originally, he could even turn actual starfish into deputies of his, making multiple Starros. Other than the mind control, drones, copies, its immense resilience, and energy absorption, Starro is also incredibly capable with regenerating, being able to grow back fully from just a fragment of his own body. There are some versions of Starro who are the size of an ocean, and they are totally capable of terraforming entire planets. Yes, he's basically a starfish, but imagining an absolutely massive ocean-sized starfish attacking our planet with drones that can turn people into unwilling servants with almost no way to stop it? That's pretty terrifying. Number 2, Eclipso. When Eclipso made his comic book debut in 1963, he was nothing more than the evil side of archaeologist Bruce Gordon that came out during the eclipse. Pretty simple. But then we fast forward to DC's 1992 Eclipso: The Darkness Within, and out of kind of nowhere, Eclipso is revealed to be a powerful cosmic entity representing the wrath of God that turned evil and was cast from heaven, replaced by the Spectre. Now, he is an entity who is trapped in a gigantic black diamond that was cut into smaller diamonds, one of which was found by Bruce Wayne years and years ago. In an event called Darkness Within, these fragments of the black diamond were activated on various powerful beings, allowing Eclipso to possess them, and one of these beings happened to be Superman himself, and the world's heroes had to fight tooth and nail to try and stop this powerful possessed Superman. It was the wizard Shazam and Billy Batson, Captain Marvel, who finally stopped him, and with the help of the Spectre, Eclipso was forced back into the reformed diamond, but he's not gone. He's still around. He's just chilling in the diamond somewhere. Number 1, Solaris. Introduced in the storyline DC 1 Million, Solaris stands as a sentient, malevolent, artificial sun from the 20th century, but he survived till and had a bigger part to play in the distant 853rd century. That's a lot of centuries. What sets Solaris apart from other villains is its status as a living star, a conscious being born from the fusion of advanced technology and the essence of a dying sun. Possessing vast cosmic power, Solaris is a relentless foe who manipulates radiation, gravity, and I mean, he's a sun. He's hella powerful, manipulating immense energy to reshape its surroundings and project formidable attacks attacks. Its motivation lies in a deep-seated desire to spread its influence and attain ultimate dominance in the universe, but also in the fact that he was defeated by the second Superman and has vowed vengeance against all Supermen who pop up after that. Solaris possesses a unique threat that transcends traditional physical battles, becoming the concept of a living sun with malevolent intent adds an enthralling layer of cosmic mystery and existential danger, and I don't want to think about that. Coming in at number 10 is William Marvell. Every now and then, I have the pleasure of talking about the Amalgam Universe, the place where Marvel Comics and DC Comics finally played nice and mashed up their characters together to give fans some of the coolest, most unique, and most powerful iterations of their favorite heroes. For the Amalgam Universe version of Shazam, I think the two comic book giants made a really cheeky move when they gave us a combination of each of their Fawcett comic character iterations. William Marvell, a mix of Billy Batson from DC and Marvel of the Kree from Marvel Comics. William here is a young boy that is transformed into a super scientific, energy projecting superhero called Captain Marvel whenever he shouts the word Kree! Now, as silly as it would be to go around shouting Kree, it really just makes sense for this to be the amalgamated version of Captain Marvel and Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was a key member of the JLA, or the Judgment League Avengers. Number 9, Mary Marvel. Mary Marvel isn't an alternate Shazam in the way you might think, meaning she isn't from an alternate universe. Instead, Mary Marvel is part of the Shazam family, arguably one of the favorites of that family. Mary Bromfield was one of several children adopted alongside Billy Batson. In other continuities, she is eventually revealed to be the twin sister to Billy, but just like DC said with their continuity, you can choose whichever one you prefer to believe in. Mary eventually is given powers by her brother Billy and becomes Mary Marvel, or Lady Shazam, fighting alongside Billy/Shazam. Eventually, Mary herself became the new champion of Shazam and gained all the power that Billy once held while he became the guardian of the Rock of Eternity. Mary is one of the longest lasting members of the Marvel family, and as such, she is one hell of a version of Shazam.
In at number 6, Metamorpho. Rex Mason can alter his body into chemical elements, but apparently his body doesn't know which chemical it should be. He looks like a group of broken toys stitched together for a last-minute art project. But regardless of his appearance, his strengths are not to be taken lightly. After being exposed to the energy of an ancient meteorite, Rex found himself being transformed into this metahuman form. Due to this mutation, Metamorpho can transmute his body in whole or just partly to whichever element he so chooses. Everything from elasticity to a wide variety of liquid, gas, or metallic elemental compounds. While Zatanna had full control over the elements of the world, Metamorpho has them readily available on his own body composition, meaning as much as they can be used for good, they can also easily be weaponized, which is another big reason why he needs to be stopped. In at number 5, Black Adam. For the most part, people recognize Black Adam as Shazam's sworn enemy, but he's actually been quite heroic a few times throughout the comic, and that's what allows him to be on this list. One time he actually saved the world, but on the other hand, he is also responsible for starting World War III. Even that, though, came from a place of good. After the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse planned to kill both him and his wife, they succeeded in the latter, and thus his wife's dying words were to avenge her. It was this pivotal moment of a super using their powers for their own needs that I keep cramming down your throat as to why they need to be stopped. Now filled with a lust for war, Adam committed a genocide in a region that had 2 million residents just because one of the horsemen were hiding there. This began the war and saw Black Adam not just defeating China's own super, but taking on anyone who opposed him, which included the Justice Society and the Teen Titans. In at number 4, Booster Gold. For the most part, Booster is seen as kind of a joke, but recently the greatest hero you've never heard of is slowly becoming one of the DC's most important heroes. After stealing a super suit, a Legion flight ring, and a time machine, Booster had ambitions of being a super for the fame and glory, and once having the spotlight in DC's first major full-year weekly event 52, Booster Gold became the guardian of the time stream. His duties were to correct any anomalies before they could unravel the fabric of the universe, but in order to do so, Booster had to continue acting as the comic relief and general buffoonery that everyone had known him for. This title, though, of Guardian of the Time Stream still puts Booster Gold in a very powerful position, such as the issues where we saw him assisting both Superman and Batman when it came to messing with time in their own respective comics. Plus, judging by his earlier character motivations to be a famous superhero, we believe he needs to be stopped. In at number 3, Wonder Woman. We all recognize that Wonder Woman is the crown jewel of the DC universe, both in film and the comic books, but in our opinion, she's becoming far too OP. In Batman vs Superman Dawn of Justice, Diana was able to fight off Doomsday and sustain much less damage than both Superman and Batman. In addition to having crazy physical combat skills, Wonder Woman has proven to be just as strong and fast as Superman. Plus, she has a telepathic ability that allows for her to not just control, but communicate with every soldier on Earth. As you can see, Wonder Woman's bracelets of victory come in handy for deflecting projectiles and energy blasts, but without them, she's actually stronger. The bracelets limit her power for the safety of her enemies, but take those things off and who knows what this overpowered DC Super could do. In at number 2, Firestorm. This hero has so much power that it took two people merged together in order to create the fiery, overpowered hero known as Firestorm. Even in DC's Legends of Tomorrow, Firestorm is incredibly OP. Firestorm is consistently utilized as one of the biggest weapons in the Legends' back pocket. The danger with bestowing so much power into one united being is, where does it all go? With the ability to absorb an atomic bomb detonation and transmute matter, Firestorm is literally waiting to explode. There is no doubt in our minds that Firestorm is capable of taking on any villain by himself, and combined with the Firestorm Matrix, there's no telling what he's capable of. Last but not least, in our number 1 spot, Batman. Many of you were triggered upon us leaving Batman out of the first part of this series, so we searched far and wide to find the most overpowered Batman, and look who ended up in the number 1 spot. Back in 2008, a series called Trinity brought the gang of the most powerful DC elite back together again. In the series, they discovered that Morgan Le Fay had colluded with other magic users to alter their reality, and this new world yanked Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, replacing them with villains. They soon found themselves dropped into an alternate reality where they were gods. Batman became Atman the Night Judge, and due to more primitive beings worshipping at his feet, the hero could practically do whatever he wanted. There you go, Batman, too strong, gotta be stopped.
Now, coming in at number 10 is Wondrous Man from Earth 11. Talking about unstoppable alternate Wonder Woman, and of course, a man makes the list. Yikes. Dane of Elysium is from the alternate Earth of Earth 11, and he isn't the only gender-swapped hero. In fact, all the heroes you may be used to are swapped. Here, the Amazons are an all-male race of warriors. The Themyscirians had actually joined with the world, creating a matriarchal society, and this group of male warriors made their way to the Isle of Elysium, where they would remain segregated from the women's world. Dane was their prince, and a hero to the world, until he wasn't. Dane found himself expelled from the Justice Guild, this world's Justice League of America, and banished from Women's World when he took the life of Maxine Lord for controlling Superwoman. Dane didn't take too kindly to this banishment, and so he decided to fight for his honor and the honor of the Amazons of Elysium by invading the United States and battling the Justice Guild, the Freedom Fighters, and the Army of Atlantis. In at number 9 is Flashpoint Wonder Woman. Flashpoint is one of the groundbreaking stories to come out of DC, presenting us with an alternate timeline caused by the Flash. It's also going to be the basis for the DCEU's Flash movie. What I have not heard word on just yet is if the Warlord version of Wonder Woman from Flashpoint will show up in that movie. By all that is holy, I hope she does. This version of Wonder Woman is already Queen of the Amazons when we are introduced to her character, and she's in a bitter rivalry and war with Atlantis and its ruler, Emperor Aquaman, which is a stupid name. That whole conflict started when her mother, Queen Hippolyta, was removed from the living at Wonder Woman and Aquaman's wedding. Diana then took the life of Mira as retribution, and the conflict snowballed until Diana had taken complete control of the UK as the new Themyscira. This version of Wonder Woman is basically the same as the standard Wonder Woman, but it's her feats and her title as Queen of the Amazons that makes her pretty much unstoppable.
In at 8, Batman. I think we all knew Batman was going to be on this list, but I'm guessing most of you figured that he'd be number 1. And while I can't deny that Batman is bad, I can honestly say that I don't think he's overpowered, but he's still unstoppable. It doesn't matter if he's rich, okay? There should be no possible way that he can get whatever he needs, whenever he needs it. But like, the best ability that Batman has is his plot armor, okay? It's not his money, it's not his martial arts mastery, it's not his gadgets. He can get whatever the story needs or whatever he needs so he just doesn't die, just because killing him off would be a horrible idea, okay? It's like, oh, it's Superman, but there's only 1 ounce of kryptonite left in this world. Oh, don't worry, Batman can get it because he's rich. I don't like that. Okay, my friend was obsessed over Batman, and I think he's overrated, and I can hear the sounds of pitchforks and torches being lighted, like, in the comments. You're also lighting your pitchforks, but like, come on, okay, come at me. Batman isn't all that, and that's why he's at number 8. He's also at number 8 because of his plot armor. That's his ultimate power and why he's unstoppable, but still. In at 7, Martian Manhunter. The Martian Manhunter possesses highly advanced reasoning and logic capabilities, and uses them to great effect. Despero once claimed that Ted Core's mind, his IQ of 192, was only second to that of John Jones. The Martian Manhunter's particularly astute reasoning capabilities and long-term association with Earth's global population gives him an edge in dealing with humans of diverse governments, cultures, and religions. And as a result, in the northern hemisphere of Earth, the Manhunter is one of many costumed adventurers battling against entropy, yet in the southern hemisphere, he's more well known than even Superman. In addition to this, the Martian Manhunter is the most powerful telepath on the planet, and is one of the strongest telepathic beings in the universe, which some also consider to be due to his intellect, or something that adds to his intellect, since he can control the minds of others. He's able to read the mind of any human with no difficulties, and the only minds that can cause him trouble are insane minds. He can even read the subconscious mind as well. He's able to read minds over great distances and has been known to scan the mind of every human on Earth within a matter of moments. Okay, I just wish he was a therapist so that he could tell me what my subconscious wants instead of me trying to figure it out on my own, because clearly that's not working. Oh wait, no, he can't read insane minds. And at 6, Green Lantern. I've been talking about this particular run a lot recently, but Emerald Twilight from back in 1994 showcases just how unstoppable Hal Jordan can be if he wants to. The story begins with Hal holding a doll in the middle of what was once Coast City. Yeah, it exploded, or was at least destroyed. Grief-stricken, he recreates the entire city using his power ring, including its deceased inhabitants, as well as his father, which violated the Green Lantern Corps code, which forbids lanterns from using their powers for personal gain. He's then contacted by a Guardian of the Universe who reminds him of that and reprimands him for it, but Hal drains the holographic projection's energy and travels to O to use the central power battery to permanently reconstruct Coast City. The Guardians send other Green Lanterns to stop him, but Hal's determined to achieve his goal and unleashes destruction on anyone who's getting in his way. He absolutely tears through the Green Lantern Corps. As Hal's rampage continues, the consequences of his actions ripple throughout the cosmos, and Green Lanterns are vanishing and their rings are inexplicably disappearing. Even Guy Gardner, who's wearing Sinestro's yellow ring, witnesses the devastation caused by Hal's actions. Alright, this dude just wanted to rebuild a city and ends up decimating the Green Lantern Corps for it. So yeah, I'm gonna go with he's pretty unstoppable. Halfway through, and at number 5, the Atom. Ray Palmer is the Atom, the mighty might, a superhero with the ability to shrink to incredible sizes while retaining his full mass, making him insanely nuts. Ray Palmer is a hardworking, dedicated man, and in fact, dedicated is hardly a word for it. Driven is a little closer to the truth. Once Ray starts working on a problem or a puzzle, there is absolutely no stopping him. Aside from his crime-fighting career, he is also one of the world's top scientific minds, given his background as a physicist, and yeah, gay, it's freaking nuts. He's capable of shrinking to subatomic sizes and explores the universe on a frontier unknown to any other man. He also created the Atom suit that allows him to do this, having it be tech instead of a superpower as well. So yeah, it's kind of putting him on the level of like Hank Pym and Tony Stark from the Marvel universe, which are some of the smartest characters in Marvel. But the dude can turn small, have a punch that's like a bullet, like Ant-Man, but can also fly while small, instead of being stuck on the ground. So yeah, I think it's fairly safe to say that Ray holds a powerful spot in the DC universe. Or at least he's up there, okay? And at 4, Wonder Woman. The Dark Knight's death metal story wrapped up early 2021 with issue number 7, and in that issue, and the issue before, we see Wonder Woman at her most powerful yet. In a godlike form that's even more powerful than a god, as the Cosmic puts it, she has been a god before, but at this moment, she's more. At this point, she's ascended past godhood and can see all of time and all realities. Yeah, she sees every Earth timeline and every Earth, and she faces off against the Batman who laughs in his most powerful form. The fight is so intense that they hit each other through time itself. Diana here is charged with anti-crisis energy, a concussive force that links all of history and all lives as one story. Then she moves on to become one of the hands that creates the multiverse going forward with no walls and greater possibilities. She aids in creating the future state story that we see in the issues following, and that is seemingly the centerpiece of DC 2021 and the new world, I guess you could say. So yeah, Wonder Woman becoming a god and remaking the universe seems pretty unstoppable to me, considering how no one stopped her. And at 3, Aquaman. Oh, look at that, I managed to reference Flashpoint twice on this number. Hell yeah, or this list. Hell yeah. In the animated Flashpoint Paradox movie and the comics, the world is much different to what it originally was. Mostly due to the war between Aquaman and Wonder Woman, who end up being the villains of the movie, and it's a lot. Thanks to them being former lovers, while Aquaman was married to Mira, who Wonder Woman then killed when Mira tried to get her revenge. Yeah, but considering how it's Amber Heard, I kinda get it. But to be fair, she also wears Mira's crown running around, so it's not like she's really saying, oh, it was self-defense. She's just like taunting him. However, this war resulted in the destruction of the planet at the literal moment that Barry was able to get enough speed to go back into the Speed Force, okay? It's a suspenseful moment where Reverse Flash has just been killed by Batman so that Barry would have enough speed to run back and stop himself from saving his mother. But yeah, he managed to get into the Speed Force before the world's destruction caught up with him, but the world was still destroyed. So you know what, that's good enough for me. Okay, this version of Aquaman was only stopped when the world ended. So yeah, yikes. We thought he was only good in the water. But ultimately, into number 2, the Spectre. Spectre is the embodiment of divine vengeance and serves as a member of the enforcers of God's will. When someone is nearing death, Spectre utilizes them as a vessel to carry out the universe's purpose. In an attempt to save John Constantine, who had caused a major disruption by altering the timeline, Spectre intervened. He guided and protected Barry Allen through the Speed Force, shielding him and the new universe from Darkseid's pursuit. However, this upset the cosmic balance, and the universe sought to punish Constantine for his actions. Despite recognizing Constantine's past deeds and offering him a seemingly idyllic eternity with his loved ones in the House of Mystery, Constantine's self-loathing transformed the experience into a nightmarish existence. When Constantine confronted Spectre and explained the circumstances, the Spectre realized his inability to offer further assistance. But still, the Spectre has the powers of a god. He's literally just the form of God's wrath, as just a thing that can move from undead body to body. Yeah, that's gonna be unstoppable. It's freaking God's wrath as a manifestation. Damn. And finally, into number 1, Dr. Manhattan. Technically it counts. Technically he's in the DC universe. Dr. Manhattan is considered the most powerful superhero in comics because he possesses ultimate powers. He debuted in the graphic novel limited series Watchmen, published in 1986 and 1987, and Manhattan later on became a major player in the DC universe. He was revealed to be responsible for the Flashpoint event and creating the New 52 timeline in the process, something that removed 10 years of history of the DC characters, and he did it on his own. So how could we not include Dr. Manhattan on the list when Jesus Christ. The dystopia in The Watchmen is caused by superheroes who thought that they could save the world but ended up leaving it hollow and broken, but Dr. Manhattan created Flashpoint on his own. So if we were saying that Barry is unstoppable because he was able to change reality, and that Aquaman was unstoppable because he was able to destroy reality and only got saved when Flash rewrote it, yeah, I think that Manhattan's gonna take the top spot. If you don't agree and you think it should be Batman, then yell at me in the comments. Alright, that's fine, I've accepted it.